Well, thank you very much for this kind introduction. So I'm going to give my presentation in English. And yes.
I'm CEO and co-founder of Ulmon, and we are a travel app company with more than 20 million app downloads to date. And we are on a mission to create the world's best travel companion app, the world's best personalized travel companion. Today, I will present together with Benedikt Glatzel. Benedikt is our head of product, and he will give you intros about how we actually do that. We are talking about artificial intelligence, and that in the context of travel. We are personalizing content based on artificial intelligence algorithms, just like we do in our apps today. But what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is or are computer systems which are able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence. This definition is from Wikipedia, and the definition is a bit vague, as we know, and it actually changes. In fact, the understanding what's covered by artificial intelligence is moving. So a couple of years ago, things like OCR were considered artificial intelligence. So object character recognition was considered artificial intelligence. Nowadays, it's just normal computer science. And to make it even more complicated, we're distinguishing two main types of artificial intelligence. On one hand, it's general AI. General AI is basically recreating the human brain, the ability to reason and think as the human brain does, and the ability to learn basically every task the human brain is capable of learning. And the second one is applied AI, or also called narrow AI. Applied AI is able to do one task very well. A popular example is the Google car, for instance, or autonomous driving in general. As we know, computers already today can drive a car reasonably well, and the development is progressing very, very quickly. Very soon, they will be able to drive the car completely autonomously, better than humans ever did. Of course, applied AI is the field where we can see the most progress nowadays, and that's also the field we will look at today in our talk today. So, how to create AI?
Thank you. So I'm not going to give you now an entire lecture on how to create AI. That's something that people study for years and years. Just the very basics, so you get an understanding of what the first steps you need to take when you want to create something that helps you automatically identify, analyze users, and then push certain offerings to them. So very generally saying preconditions for AI, I don't think anyone considers this rocket science, but it's data, of course. Data, data, data as much as possible. Second one is processing power, that you can actually go through the data and make something out of it. And the third part is algorithms and methods to actually make sense of what data you have. This is very, very general again, but why I'm making this point is because recently this has become quite of a topic also in popular media, and is starting to also enter the travel and tourism industry. And the reason for that is, on the one hand, that there's massive increases in data storage and processing power to a degree that now any company can do it, and any startup can do it, and any startup can go into a certain field and disrupt it with the processing power they can cheaply buy. And the second part, and that is very important for us as well, as Ulmon, is there are vast improvements in how you can actually gather data. And most importantly, there's one thing that changed it completely, the field in how you can get data, is the mobile phone. It's something that's packed with sensors. Everyone has it with them. And with that, you can actually gather data that you could never before with websites or even before with phone calls, etc. And this is how we at Ulmon realized on what kind of a trove we're sitting, since we are a mobile-first company, and how much we can actually do with this data. So here's an example that everyone knows probably and has heard of how data can be gathered. This is the rocket science example, so to say. You have Google Car, driverless car, and has lots of sensors, very mobile that say, okay, what does the environment look like? Where am I? But if you take a step back and look at what data actually is gathered and can still be used from simple websites like Netflix, Netflix knows what you watch, how much you watch it, when you watch it, which kind of movies you stop, do you watch them at home or somewhere else. So Netflix knows all of these things, which are very simple and very easily gathered from their website. But by using this data and actually then having the algorithms and the machine learning and the artificial intelligence run over that, they could increase engagement by 30%. So this is a very simple website that there is. So imagine what you can do when you actually have the ability to gather data for travelers, where location data is very important. So I'm now doing a little experiment and asking a few questions on the data you have and know. First one, please raise your hands. How many of you know the percentage of vegans amongst your customers? Please raise your hand. Nobody? Yeah, kinda, okay. One out of quite a bit, okay. Next question. This one I hope more know. How many of you know the percentage of budget travelers amongst your customers? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's a few more hands. That's quite an important information, right? And you can kind of infer it from the booking data. How many of you know the number of trips your customers are doing every year and where? Not only with your service. Oh, there's one in the back. Very good. So this one is a tricky one, because if it's with your service, you can more easily say it, of course. But how many of you know how many trips they're doing in general? And this is where data gathering capabilities are becoming very important. When you move beyond your website, and the best way to do that is simply taking the mobile phone and getting location data, you can very easily answer all of these questions from your data. For example, you see somebody and you see the location of them not changing from a vegan restaurant. So you have defined there's a point that's a vegan restaurant, and you see a user is not moving for 30 minutes. What can you infer? They're vegans, or they have a vegan friend. So if you look at it, are they more often at a vegan restaurant? Then you can say, yeah, they're probably vegans, and then you can start pushing them offers from vegan restaurants. And you don't even need to ask them. You just see the location and you can infer this from them. Another one is they're visiting a hostel and not changing location overnight, means they're probably staying there. And they can infer their budget travelers without having to send them a questionnaire, and you can start actually tailoring the offers you have to a more budget traveler profile. And a third one, location changes out of the boundaries of their hometown. Very simple, you know, they're doing a trip. If they're not in their hometown, they're doing some kind of business or private trip then. And the location changes along a certain route and with a certain speed. What does this tell you? Probably you can infer from that what kind of mode of transportation they prefer. Is it a car? Is it a train? And then accordingly, you can offer them, after you understood that, certain transportation offerings. So these are all things that we figured out that the data can tell us, and what we also saw, since we are a location company and we have actually mobile-first products. But this is all things that you can still kind of do with an analyst team that just looks over the data. How does AI build on that? So the first part is, of course, it can automate things. The things I just said, they were intuitive, but there's a lot of intuitions that need trawling through large, vast data sources and then finding these kind of patterns. And these patterns could turn out to be things that you haven't expected before. Could be that there is a correlation between somebody that likes to travel to Berlin and this person has a higher chance of liking doner kebab, for example, just as an example. And then this AI, what they also can do is seamlessly adapt actions. If they integrate in your systems, they can not only give you these analysis, they can immediately adapt the homepage or the app or the service that you provide, tailored to the finding that you actually found there. And there's no little human interaction necessary. Of course, there's some oversight needed, but you don't need a lot of personnel once this is in place. Yeah, this is another example on this. This is Google DeepMind played against Go players, which a few years ago it was thought impossible that an artificial intelligence can actually beat a human Go player, because Go is so complex. It has so many different ways and so many different strategies and so many different moves that you could do. And what happened is that Google DeepMind beat a Go champion. And it did that by actually doing new moves and new strategies that weren't known by human players, because it analyzed all of these games and synthesized new patterns and new ways to do it, and that way they actually beat the human player. Then one that you probably know, voice-activated assistants. I won't go too deep into that. This one is trawling through large data of all the people that actually ask them, so Siri or Google Now, all the people that talk to these systems, they feed into an artificial intelligence system that goes over it and then adapts all the answers across the world accordingly to all the inputs it got before and all the reactions that came out of it. And another one, Facebook newsfeed, also goes through all your likes, all the things that it sees you do and write on Facebook, and accordingly then surfaces certain articles. This seems very simple, but this is also something that is artificial intelligence and that can be used for the travel industry. And the question is, how?
So we have seen now AI applications in general and how AI is built. But let's dive into travel now. In travel, one field of usage of AI are recommender engines, which recommend content offers to your personal interests. Why are we starting with these? Because we as a company, we've built a recommender engine which is built just inside our app, which takes information about you, info we know about you, and personalizes content for you. But why is this even important? Why is it better to serve users narrower and more personalized offerings when compared to today's state of art to have a vast variety of options? Because more is less. There have been a couple of studies done in that field that the more options you present to your users or to your customers, the more it essentially confuses them. Decisions are postponed, not postponed, but postponed. They lead, and ultimately it leads to less satisfaction for the customer. So nowadays we actually live in a time where we have more and more information, but less and less time to actually process it. We have millions and millions of options of booking travel. And we know that travelers spend days in researching their trips. So we also know that the more options we have, as said before, the more it confuses people. Presenting them with a moderate number of options will lead to more satisfaction and will lead to more confidence in the decision they took. And this is not only theory. In other industries, already today, we can see that it works. For instance, Amazon gets 35% of its sales from the recommended articles they have. In Netflix, it's even 75% of the viewership. And also in other fields, we can see tremendous increases in conversion. But you might ask, what does this have to do with AI? Isn't that just big data or having some data scientists cross-reference your product? Yes, that's correct for these fields. But in travel, it's different. The product is much more complicated. It's that you have much more degrees of freedom in how to combine products, and it's not as simple as recommending House of Cards to somebody who watched Designated Survivor. It's depending on your interest. It's depending on the time of the year. It's depending on the mode of travel you're looking for. There's so many options, and we think that only AI can deal with this complexity. So let's look at 3 applications of AI in travel. Let's start with customer service bots. What we can see here is the bot, the customer service bot of Qantas. They were one of the pioneers here. They just released it. And essentially, a customer service bot is a personal connection of your brand with your customers. Every customer can address and talk to you through this chatbot interface. Why is this interesting? Because on one hand, customer behavior does change. The younger generation prefers chat to calling. And on the other hand, you can automatize these interactions much more and much more easily. So this then, of course, leads to a more personal experience for the individual traveler, as well as it allows you to much quicker interact with all of your customers. You can answer additional questions they might have about your product. You can give them support during the trip. So customer service bots combined with AI is a very powerful combination, and we think it will grow tremendously in the next years. Next thing are personal trip assistants. Actually, personal trip assistants we think of are a part of general assistants we know today. On one hand, we have Google Now, or Google Assistant, it is now called. On the Apple platform, they have Apple Siri, and there is new ones like Amazon Alexa, Amazon Echo, which are home-based. So what are these assistants doing? They are surfacing interesting info throughout your trip cycle. And these assistants are getting more and more abilities to customize. Amazon Alexa or Amazon Echo was the first product which allowed you to really customize what they call skills. That means you could really tell the system how to perform a certain task. A popular example is you stand at home and you tell Alexa, call me an Uber. The Uber will come to your home. So Amazon was a pioneer here. They opened up the APIs, and we think the others will follow. So there will be much more APIs into Google Assistant, and there will be much more APIs into Apple Siri. And this combined with the travel use case will lead to possibilities to serve your customers through this assistance. And the third one are content recommenders or recommendation engines. We have built a recommendation engine inside our app, which takes information about you, essentially the interests you tell us, your location, the point of time, the stage in a travel cycle, and will recommend content based on that. So in the moment we see that you start planning your trip to Berlin, we'll start recommending interesting stuff for Berlin. Interesting ideas for services, for tourist activities. The more you come to the trip, and when you arrive in Berlin, then these recommendations become much more targeted. So when you stand in front of the Fernsehturm, the big tower, there are tickets for that. We can recommend this ticket in this context at this moment. So we think that by very smart recommendation, based on your interest, based on your location, based on your context, and we can measure that, the conversions are growing strongly, and you can achieve 3 to 4 X the conversion you normally have when a user comes to you. When you think about it, it's kind of a bit of a different type of content marketing, which is nowadays just one channel, maybe one channel per country. You send out your ideas to all your customer base, but you don't personalize it at all. This is much more fine-grained, much more personalized. So what are the learnings? And I'm coming to an end now. What can travel companies do today? Do not miss the boat on these new technologies on AI. First, we learned data is the key. So the more you know about your customer, the better you can, of course, personalize and the better your AI systems can get. Personalization is coming to travel. There's no question about that. It was long, the other industries jumped ahead, travel will follow, and all the numbers show that the conversions are much, much higher if you have a personalized offering. So that means, essentially, you have to think about this now. You have to think about your AI strategy today and don't wait until the others do that. That's it from us today. I hope you enjoyed our talk. We are around after the talk in this area, and you can also email us if you are interested in getting in touch. We have a B2B offer and a B2C offer, and we are happy to talk to you. Thanks.